brake drum bolts are gone. I usually like to give the bearing surface here a little smooth out. And make sure, you can see a little bit of galling here. That make sure there's none of that still around. Where the seal goes, the inner seal, give that a little bit of a polish up. You can see where the seal's run in the past, that's a slight lower spot. Nothing to be too concerned about. That's a nice surface out there already. I may just take this over to the bead blaster and just tidy up in around here. See the little bit of paint flaking in through here. So the bead blaster will sort that out, so when we paint it we don't have little rough edges there. So I might go and tidy it up in the bead blaster and we'll bring it back. Okay, we've knocked the outer seal out and we've cleaned the housing up. We're keeping the bearing, so there's no need to shift the bearing. But when you use these Sparex seals, S5946, look, they're a great seal. They have a leather outer, same as the original seal did, and a wiper, a seal in here. But the trouble you may have is this outside on the seal here is so hard. Like it's really hard. You're flat out moving. It's like a piece of board. And I've got a plane going right over the top now, but not to worry. So what I do with these, we have other work to go on with, and I'm going to soak these in oil overnight. So the oil will loosen the leather, and tomorrow when we go to fit it on, it'll be a lot better and it'll seal better. It'll be softer, so it will conform to the shape of the axle more too. So I'll go and find a bit of oil and do that, and tomorrow we'll put this axle together. Okay, due to the wonders of modern technology, we've woken up again. It's time to put the seal in. Now, you can see I can move that with my hand now, but that's just flexing. So it's hard to see. I've got one of the big high bay lights in the shed here blew yesterday, so we're having a little bit of a lighting worry. I might have to shift the bench yet. So look, all we do with that is you can press this if you like, you can bang it in, you can now, if you have a look over the back there, the light's not being kind to us today, this morning. It's early in the morning, it's just 6 o'clock in the morning, and I have to have the light on in the shed. So it's my day off and I'm working on tractors because that's what I like to do. So I'm up here at 6 and I'll probably finish at 6 tonight. That's what having a hobby's for. So look, we've put that seal in, that's pliable now. So we'll go over to the axle and we'll run through how I pop one axle together, and then we'll move on to the final drive housing, make sure everything's in there before we put it back. Okay, here we are over on the bench where we're going to assemble the axle here, and we've got the trusty chip cooker here, and look, that's just a domestic deep fryer. Mine happens to be a Sunbeam brand. Yeah, I find it works great. You can keep the same oil for a few heats and away you go. So what we do there, we turn that up to maximum on the dial here, Now the bearing has to go in that way because this axle housing sits up like that, so the bearing has to go in that way. So at this stage I pop the bearing in and that starts to heat while I'm doing other jobs. Now I've worked out the other day that when this light starts to flicker, we're at about 140 degrees, so we're going to try and get the heat gun and work out where on the knob here we have 120, since we found out that that's the go. Now this axle here, this is where the outer seal goes. I've tidied all that up, I've bead blasted, I've polished. We've softened that seal now, and that's that lip that seal has to go over, and that's why it's quite hard to get it over there. So, and they're still very firm to get over if you use these Sparex seals. At least they're pliable this time, but yeah, they are. Other brands aren't as hard to get on, but I like the leather here. I think they're a great seal. I'll just put a little bit of grease on that edge. A little bit of grease through. The seal's impregnated with oil now, so that's a good thing. The outer bearing on a 35, because you have an inner and an outer seal, that this whole cavity gets filled with grease. So I'll fiddle with this. I'll get this bit down on there, and it's going to take some doing. I'll probably get a soft hammer and try and bump it down. Right, this leather seal on the axle flange here, it's that firm on this axle that I was trying to bump it on and sort it out, and I was just chasing it round and round in circles. So I've chose to bring it over to my axle pulling plate that I use in the press, and with my big adapter here I can just line it up true, because I couldn't seem to get it to start. I kept chasing it round and round in circles. So by setting it up here with this big surface area of this adapter I've made here for other purposes, that actually centralises it, and look, it doesn't even register on the gauge, the pressure that we're putting on there. But that's got that started. No need to go all the way down, and that should have it started nicely for us. Oh, they're a tight seal. Right, now these Sparex seals being so tight, and you'll see where we just popped it through with the other, with the press. This gives us a chance to look down now and see the spring, make sure that everything's gone okay. And look, I'm happy with that. I can see the spring all the way around, so we know we haven't got a turned lip or anything like that. So next cab off the rank is see how the bearing's going. You could probably chuck some chippies in there if you chose to. They wouldn't taste real nice, would they? I suppose you could put vegetable oil in there and cook your bearings and your Chico roll together. Okay, our oil, about 128, something like that, which is plenty hot enough. 120 is plenty. So we'll grab our bearing here. Bring him down over the top. And sometimes they go a bit crooked, but being a cold axle this morning, it been sitting on crooked. That yeah, I had to bump it down. So you always make sure you have a punch in that ready. It does happen, but yeah, sometimes you just drop it on and it just sinks right to the bottom and away you go. Looks like one time there it's had a bit of a doozy of someone's been a bit rough trying to get it off. Okay, next we heat the collar up and we drop the collar down over the axle. Alright, I got to fess up with you. I just grabbed this collar, heated it up, went to put it on the axle, wrong one. I hadn't sat it down to test it first, had I? And that was a TE21 that I had sitting aside, and I grabbed the wrong one. So here's the 35 one. That's the difference. So I'll just start that bit again, eh? And I'll heat him up. Right, you can see that just starting to get red. It doesn't want to be just red, you want it a bright red. I've got it up on a bit of channel because my welding bench is 1¼ inch thick steel, and with 1¼ inch thick steel it will just draw too much heat away, where this here it'll shield it a bit and won't absorb so much heat. Right, you'll see that's a bright red now, very bright red. We'll just grab that, bring him down over the top. And it's marvellous that when you get the right size collar on there, they just slide right on. So technical stuff up there. But anyway, we'll just let that cool, and that axle's done now. We've taken the broken bolts out. We had to knock studs down on the other one, but that'll settle. Now, the only thing we do need to do once this cools is we'll put a heap of grease around that bearing. Because you have an outer seal here to hold the grease in and an inner seal running on this surface here, well, that bearing doesn't get lubricated from the transmission oil anymore. So by putting a liberal coating of grease in the bearings, you ensure that that bearing has a long life and it's lubricated. Right, for greasing the bearings and getting it right in, you can buy a thing called a grease needle, and that fits onto the end of your grease gun. So it just snaps in like a grease nipple or a zerk. So I like to pop the needle down somewhere around the centre of each bearing. Give it 1 or 2 pumps. Looks like 2 fills the cavity. Now, in mechanical terms, this is not a fast moving assembly, being a wheel bearing. So, and being well, on this tractor 28-inch rims, you'll notice that every revolution of the wheel, this bearing turns once, of course. So the grease in here, no need to overload it. I just like to make sure the rollers have got plenty. That will even out when we put it all on and make him turn, and it'll all be okay. Any left over, I'll just wipe around the top, but that'll be stacks of grease for that bearing. And that axle, I might just put a little bit of oil from my fingers and that around where the seal goes here. All right, axle done.